and carry out quality control of maps. The third one is remote sensing analysis, having the ability to plan, interpret, analyze, classify, extract, validate, and visualize data and information from remote sensing result. And the last one, geographic information system analysis, having the ability to plan, collect, process, manage, provide, control, and create providing data, innovation, and geospatial information. The development of geospatial technology and the use of geography-based information technology are developing very rapidly, so that scientific information on geography is needed in this time and in the future.
As a geographer, we are obligated to know our surroundings, so we do a lot of field practice. We conduct field practice around the campus vicinity and sometimes elsewhere at distant locations. Among the places we've been through are Cisolok Sukabumi and Karangsambung during geology field practice, South Garut during remote sensing for physical geography, South Bandung during hydrology and soil geography, many more. These field practice are one of the most amazing part of studying in geography information science, because you could see the world around and really help in realizing that everything is needed to be respected.
Program Studi Survei Pemetaan dan Informasi Geografis atau disingkat dengan SPIG adalah salah satu program diploma di Universitas Pendidikan Indonesia yang didirikan pada tahun 2008. Awalnya prodi SPIG adalah prodi yang berjenjang diploma 3, namun pada tahun 2022 ini, prodi SPIG bertransformasi menjadi program diploma 4.
Selamat datang di program studi Survei Pemetaan dan Informasi Geografis Fakultas Pendidikan Ilmu Pengetahuan Sosial Universitas Pendidikan Indonesia. Pada tahun 2022 ini, prodi SPIG bertransformasi dari jenjang diploma 3 menjadi jenjang diploma 4 yang setara dengan level sarjana. Prodi D4 SPIG mengedepankan kemampuan soft skill dan hard skill terapan, terutama sebagai penyedia tenaga ahli dalam bidang survei pemetaan dan informasi geografis.
Program studi Diploma 4 SPIG merupakan gabungan dari dua bidang keilmuan, yaitu ilmu geodesi dan ilmu geografi. Lulusan program studi Diploma 4 SPIG akan memiliki gelar sarjana terapan dan memiliki kompetensi di bidang survei pemetaan, penginderaan jauh, serta sistem informasi geografis. Tenaga pengajar di program studi SPIG terdiri dari lulusan perguruan tinggi terkemuka, baik di dalam negeri maupun di luar negeri, dengan kompetensi keahlian di bidang survei pemetaan, penginderaan jauh, sistem informasi geografis, dan geografi. Perkuliahan di program studi SPIG juga didukung oleh berbagai fasilitas, seperti ruang perkuliahan, ruang baca yang nyaman, dan laboratorium yang dilengkapi dengan alat-alat praktikum yang memadai dan senantiasa diperbaharui untuk mengikuti perkembangan zaman. Selain fasilitas dan sumber daya manusia, program studi SPIG juga terus mengembangkan kurikulum agar sesuai dengan perkembangan ilmu pengetahuan, teknologi, serta kebutuhan pengguna lulusan. Proses pembelajaran di prodi SPIG terdiri dari 60% praktikum dan 40% teori. Proporsi tersebut diyakini akan menghasilkan lulusan dengan kemampuan survei, pemetaan, dan informasi geografis yang siap beradaptasi dengan kondisi di lapangan. Program studi SPIG senantiasa membangun kerjasama dengan lembaga pemerintahan, instansi swasta, dan asosiasi profesi. Lembaga pemerintahan yang bekerja sama dengan prodi SPIG antara lain Badan Informasi Geospasial, Kementerian Pekerjaan Umum, Kementerian Agraria dan Tata Ruang, Lembaga Penerbangan dan Antariksa Nasional, Jawatan Topografi TNI Angkatan Darat, Dinas Hidronomika dan Oseanografi TNI Angkatan Laut, sejumlah perusahaan swasta seperti PT Asaba, PT Geotronik, asosiasi profesi yang berhubungan dengan bidang geodesi dan geografi juga bekerja sama dengan prodi SPIG seperti Ikatan Surveyor Indonesia, Ikatan Geograf Indonesia, Masyarakat Ahli Penginderaan Jauh Indonesia, Asosiasi Perusahaan Survei Pemetaan dan Informasi Geospasial, dan Perkumpulan Ahli Informasi Geospasial Indonesia.
Adik-adik, selamat bergabung di prodi kami. Mari kita petakan dunia dengan karya nyata, Mapping the World.
Yours.
Peace be upon us all. Shalom. Om Swastiastu. Namo Buddhaya. Greetings all of you too. Praise be to God Almighty, who for His blessings, mercy, and grace We can all gather in the international session, Sustainable Cities and Urban Development, Climate Action and Low Carbon Futures.
Allow us to introduce ourselves. I am Erlan Farezi, together with my colleague.
And I'm Windri Anggraini as the Masters of Ceremony for this event.
We respectfully welcome the Honorable Dr. Fitri Rahma Fitria MSc as Vice Dean of Faculty of Science, Social Science Education, Universitas Pendidikan Indonesia.
The Honorable Dr. Iwan Setiawan SPD MSI as the Head of Geography Education Study Program, Universitas Pendidikan Indonesia.
The Honorable Dr. Lili Somantri SPD MSI as the Head of Geographic Information Science Study Program, Universitas Pendidikan Indonesia.
Honorable Dr. Nanin Trianawati Sugito STMT as the Head of Geographic Information Mapping Survey Study Program, Universitas Pendidikan Indonesia.
Honorable Professor John C. Lovett, Professor Paul Chatterton, Dr. Roger Cremades Rodeja as the speaker of today's international seminar. However, we regret to inform you that Dr. Roger cannot attend today's agenda because he is sick. We wish him a speedy recovery.
And the Honorable the lecturers of Geography Department,
as well as all the guests that we are proud of. To strengthen the love of our country, let us sing the national anthem Indonesia Raya. Distinguished guests, please rise for the singing of the national anthem. Ladies and gentlemen, please be seated. Next on the agenda is the recitation of prayers by Nayatama Al-Farisi.
Oke, bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Before we proceed, let us take a moment to pray according to our own belief. The prayer will be led in the Islamic tradition. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Allahumma inni nas'aluka salamatan fid dini wad dunya wal akhirah, wa afiatan fil jasad, wa ziyadatan fil ilmi, wa barakatan fir rizki, wa taubatan qoblal maut, wa rahmatan indal maut, wa magfiratan ba'dal maut. Allahumma hawin alaina fi syakaratil maut, wan najata minan nar, wa indal hisab. Rabbi zidni ilman warzuqni fahman. Rabbana atina fid dunya hasanah, wa fil akhirati hasanah, wa qina azabannar. Allahumma arzuqna fahman nabiyyin wa hifdzal mursalin wa ilhamal malaikatil muqarrabin birahmatika ya arhamar rahimin. Oh Lord, I seek your guidance and wisdom as I sit down to study. Clear my mind of a distraction and help me to absorb the information effectively. Grant me perseverance and a thirst for knowledge. Thank you for the opportunity to grow through learning. Amen. Oh dear God, please give me a clear mind and a strong memory. As I study, help me to persevere in my learning. Amen. Thank you for your attention. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Before starting today's international seminar, allow us to announce the schedule for today's event.
Singing Indonesian National Anthem, opening remarks, keynote welcome, documentation session, screening of introductory videos of moderator and speakers, delivery of international seminar materials, panel discussion, awarding, documentation session, and closing. The next agenda is the delivery of remarks. The first remarks will be delivered by the head of Geography Education Study Program, Dr. Iwan Setiawan, SPD, MSI.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Honorable speakers, Prof. Chatterton, Dr. Roger Cremades Rodeja, and Prof. John C. Lovett from the University of Leeds, Dean and Vice Dean of Faculty of Social Science Education, esteemed professors and lecturers in geography, geography education, head of the Geographic Information System Study Program, head of the Survey, Mapping, and Information Study Program, as well as all participants who have joined offline and online today. With deep gratitude and appreciation, I welcome you to the international seminar, themed Sustainable Cities and Urban Development, Climate Action and Low Carbon Futures. On behalf of the Geography Department, which consists of 5 study programs from vocational schools, bachelor's, master, and doctoral program. Faculty of Social Science Education, Universitas Pendidikan Indonesia. I am honored to give a speech in this seminar. Today's time, I invite us to reflect on the very important link between sustainable urban development and climate action in realizing a low-carbon future. Cities are not only hubs of growth and innovation, but also the space most affected by climate change and contribute greatly to carbon emission. Realizing a sustainable city and low carbon future is not only a matter of technology and infrastructures, but also a shared commitment to ensure a decent quality of life for current and future generations. Through this seminar, we hope to build a meaningful dialogue space by presenting various perspectives, experience, and best practices from various regions. We are honored to be able to present speakers who will share valuable knowledge and insight. Hopefully, this forum will be able to generate new ideas, strengthen international collaboration networks, and strengthen our shared commitment to realizing sustainable cities and low carbon future. Let's take this opportunity not only to discuss, but also to act, build connection, and lead change together. Hopefully, today's discussion will run smoothly and have a real impact. Warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you to Dr. Iwan Setiawan for the remarks.
The next agenda is the delivery of keynote welcome that will be delivered by the Vice Dean of Faculty of Social Science Education, Dr. Fitria Rahma Fitria, MSI.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good morning and warm greeting to all of you. Distinguished speakers from Leeds University and also head of the Geography Education Study Program, head of Science Information and Geography Program, respected colleagues and also lecturers and dear students, thank you for us today. First of all, I would like to apologize because our dean cannot come to this meeting. I'm so sorry that Professor Cecep Darmawan could not attend and open this event since he have to pay his respectful to colleague from UPI who passed away this morning. So I think it is a very great pleasure for me to welcome our esteemed guest speaker from the University of Leeds, Professor John Lovett, and also Professor Paul Chatterton. And I'm so sorry that Dr. Roger Cremades Rodeja cannot come to this meeting because of his sick. I hope he will get well soon. So, and a particularly warm welcome back to Professor John Lovett. It is truly wonderful to have you with us again at UPI. Your repeated visit reflect a strong and sincere academic friendship, and we deeply appreciate your commitment to have collaboration and strengthening our collaboration here. So, ladies and gentlemen, today's international guest lecture series entitled "The Sustainable City and Urban Development, Climate Action and Low Carbon Futures" is deeply relevant to Indonesians' current realities. In recent weeks, we have witnessed a serious flooding affecting several major cities and regions across the country, including Jakarta, the head of our city, several cities in Central Java, and also earlier, the big incident and disaster in Aceh and Padang. So I think these events are stark reminders that climate-related risks are not abstract projections. They are already disrupting lives, infrastructure, and also urban services. So for Indonesia, climate action and the transition to low carbon future are therefore not distant global agendas. They are urgent priorities that must inform how we plan, govern, and also redesign our city to be more resilient, more sustainable, and become safer. So I think this is why academic collaboration very matters. Today's session is not only about sharing knowledge. I hope we can also building pathway to solution through evidence-based research, innovative policy ideas, and also practical experiences that can be adapted to Indonesian context. So the collaboration between the University of Leeds and UPI offer a strong bridge, combining international expertise and also global network with Indonesians' rich local realities and development needs. So looking ahead, we hope this partnership between School of Geography at University of Leeds and also the Faculty of Social Science Education at UPI will grow even stronger and wider. So beyond guest lectures, we envision expanded cooperation through joint research projects and also co-authored publication, for example, and also co-supervision of postgraduate student, as we have the program of doctoral and in geography, and also the development of short courses or micro-credential and on low carbon urban development, nature-based solution, and also urban resilience. We believe that a sustained partnership can create real impact, not only for our institution, but also for communities and policymakers. And finally, I would like to express my sincere appreciation to the organizing committee and our moderator for today, Dr. Annisa Joviani Astari, and also everyone who has made this event possible. So may today's lecture inspire new ideas, strengthen network, and open further opportunities for meaningful collaboration. So with that, in the spirit of sharing the knowledge and also partnership, I am pleased to officially open this international guest lecture series. Thank you so much, and I would like, I hope you will have a productive and insightful session. Once again, thank you so much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you to Dr. Fitri Rahma Fitria for the keynote welcome.
Next is the documentation session. Dear guests, please follow the instructions from the documentation team. To the speakers, we would like to ask you to move forward for the documentation. As well as the head of geography education, head of geography information science, and geography information mapping survey. To all the lecturers, you may come forward.
Oh, ya dilakukan seperti kemarin. Mungkin ya yang ngelakuin nih. Oh, kira mereka. Ini sih, besok soalnya. Gimana ke kasutnya? Kita anterin. Iya, Mas. Bisa. Bisa.
Ladies and gentlemen, please
Wah,
be seated.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's watch the introduction video by all of the Geography Department, Geography Education Study Program, Geographic Information Science Study Program, Geographic Information Mapping Survey Study Program.
Department of Geography Education was established in 1961 by decree of P&K Minister. The vision of Geography Education Study Program, Faculty of Social Science Education, is to become a leading and outstanding study program and the development of geography education in Indonesia by 2020. The Master Program of Geography Education was established on April 2010 based on the Directorate of Higher Education Decree. The vision of study program is to become a pioneer and outstanding geography education study program at national level in 2020 and at international level in 2025 based on scientific, educational, and Pancasila values. Geography Education Doctoral Study Program was established on June 2014 based on the Directorate of Higher Education Decree. The vision is to become a leading and outstanding study program in geography education in 2020 based on the scientific, educational, and religious principle. Geographic Information Science Study Program was established on 2018. This study program contributed in development of geospatial technologies and utilization of information technology. The vision of this study program is to become a leading and outstanding in the field of geography information science in Indonesia by 2028. Geographic Information Mapping Survey is one of study program of Geography Education Department which was established on August 15, 2008. The vision is to become a pioneer study program and excel in the field of surveying, mapping, and geographic information in Indonesia in 2025.
The Geography Information Science study program was established under a state of urgency, in which there is lacking of regional, national, and international supply of competent workforce. In such field of expertise, and to become a pioneer study program and excel in the field of Geographic Information Science in Indonesia in 2028. The main competencies of graduates are: the first one, regional mapping and land surveying, having the ability to area mapping survey activities, acquisition, validate, process, analyze survey data mapping, and visualizing geosphere information. The second one is cartography analyze, having the ability to read and present maps, process geospatial data, and carry out quality control of maps. The third one is remote sensing analyze, having the ability to plan, interpret, analyze, classify, extract, validate, and visualize data and information from remote sensing result. And the last one, geographic information system analyze, having the ability to plan, collect, process, manage, provide, control, and create providing data, innovation, and geosphere information. The development of geospatial technology and the use of geography-based information technology are developing very rapidly, so that scientific information on geography is needed in this time and in the future.
As a geographer, we are obligated to know our surrounding, so we do a lot of field practice. We conduct field practice around the campus vicinity and sometimes elsewhere at distant locations. Among the places we've been through are Cisolok Sukabumi and Karangsambung during geology field practice, South Garut during remote sensing or physical geography, South Bandung during hydrology and soil geography, many more. These field practice are one of the most amazing part of studying in geography information science, because you could see the world around and really help in realizing that everything is needed to be respected.
Program Studi Survei Pemetaan dan Informasi Geografis atau disingkat dengan SPIG adalah salah satu program diploma di Universitas Pendidikan Indonesia yang didirikan pada tahun 2008. Awalnya prodi SPIG adalah prodi yang berjenjang diploma 3, namun pada tahun 2022 ini, prodi SPIG bertransformasi menjadi program diploma 4.
Selamat datang di program studi Survei Pemetaan dan Informasi Geografis Fakultas Pendidikan Ilmu Pengetahuan Sosial Universitas Pendidikan Indonesia. Pada tahun 2022 ini, prodi SPIG bertransformasi dari jenjang diploma 3 menjadi jenjang diploma 4 yang setara dengan level sarjana. Prodi D4 SPIG mengedepankan kemampuan soft skill dan hard skill terapan, terutama sebagai penyedia tenaga ahli dalam bidang survei pemetaan dan informasi geografis.
Program studi Diploma 4 SPIG merupakan gabungan dari dua bidang keilmuan, yaitu ilmu geodesi dan ilmu geografi. Lulusan program studi Diploma 4 SPIG akan memiliki gelar sarjana terapan dan memiliki kompetensi di bidang survei pemetaan, penginderaan jauh, serta sistem informasi geografis. Tenaga pengajar di program studi SPIG terdiri dari lulusan perguruan tinggi terkemuka, baik di dalam negeri maupun di luar negeri, dengan kompetensi keahlian di bidang survei pemetaan, penginderaan jauh, sistem informasi geografis, dan geografi. Perkuliahan di program studi SPIG juga didukung oleh berbagai fasilitas, seperti ruang perkuliahan, ruang baca yang nyaman, dan laboratorium yang dilengkapi dengan alat-alat praktikum yang memadai dan senantiasa diperbaharui untuk mengikuti perkembangan zaman. Selain fasilitas dan sumber daya manusia, program studi SPIG juga terus mengembangkan kurikulum agar sesuai dengan perkembangan ilmu pengetahuan, teknologi, serta kebutuhan pengguna lulusan. Proses pembelajaran di Prodi SPIG terdiri dari 60% praktikum dan 40% teori. Proporsi tersebut diyakini akan menghasilkan lulusan dengan kemampuan survei, pemetaan, dan informasi geografis yang siap beradaptasi dengan kondisi di lapangan. Program studi SPIG senantiasa membangun kerjasama dengan lembaga pemerintahan, instansi swasta, dan asosiasi profesi. Lembaga pemerintahan yang bekerja sama dengan Prodi SPIG antara lain Badan Informasi Geospasial, Kementerian Pekerjaan Umum, Kementerian Agraria dan Tata Ruang, Lembaga Penerbangan dan Antariksa Nasional, Jawatan Topografi TNI Angkatan Darat, Dinas Hidronamika dan Oseanografi TNI Angkatan Laut, sejumlah perusahaan swasta seperti PT Asaba, PT Geotronik, asosiasi profesi yang berhubungan dengan bidang geodesi dan geografi, juga bekerja sama dengan Prodi SPIG, seperti Ikatan Surveyor Indonesia, Ikatan Geograf Indonesia, Masyarakat Ahli Penginderaan Jauh Indonesia, Asosiasi Perusahaan Survei Pemetaan dan Informasi Geospasial dan Perkumpulan Ahli Informasi Geospasial Indonesia.
Adik-adik, selamat bergabung di prodi kami. Mari
delivering seminar material session by all of the speakers. Professor Paul Chatterton with topic Sustainable Cities and Urban Climate Policy and Action.
Professor Lovett with topic Climate Adaptation and Resilience, Coastal and Urban Infrastructure Risks, Sustainable Infrastructure. But before that, allow us to show the introduction video of our extraordinary moderator, Mrs. Annisa Joviani Astari, Ph.D.
Ladies and gentlemen, it is our pleasure to introduce today's moderator, Annisa Joviani Astari, Ph.D., Assistant Professor at the Geography Department, Faculty of Social Sciences Education, Universitas Pendidikan Indonesia. Mrs. Annisa earned her Doctor of Philosophy from University of Twente, the Netherlands, specializing in governance and technology for sustainability. Her doctoral research explored global sustainability agendas, institutional change, power relations, and environmental governance in the Indonesian multi-sector. She also holds a double master's degree in energy and environmental management from the University of Twente and environmental science from Universitas Pajajaran, as well as a bachelor's degree in environmental science from Universitas Pajajaran. Her research interests focus on geographic information system for sustainable development, the Sustainable Development Goals, institutional analysis, environmental policy, globalization, and sustainability in the interdisciplinary sector. Mrs. Annisa has been actively involved in international research collaborations with institutions such as the University of Leeds, Universitas Gadjah Mada, Badan Riset dan Inovasi Nasional, Sionaris France, Sorbonne University, and Kobe University, and is part of the Indonesia Net Zero Network supported by the University of Leeds. With professional experience in environmental impact assessment, green metric analysis, and renewable energy education, she has also contributed as a co-instructor in the national MOOCs of International and Environmental and Energy Studies. Her academic contributions include books, high-impact journal articles, and international conference publications on sustainability, environmental governance, GIS, climate change, and ecological system. Today, she will guide our discussions and facilitate meaningful dialogue with our distinguished speakers. Please join me in welcoming Annisa Joviani Astari, Ph.D.
And without further ado, please welcome our excellent moderator, Mistress Annisa Joviani Astari, Ph.D.
Cek. Oke. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. So thank you very much, Windy and Erlan as the master of ceremony. So the Honorable Dean of Faculty of Social Science Education and Vice Dean, Dr. Fitri, and Head of Geography Education Study Program, Pak Iwan, the Head of Site Study Program, Dr. Lily, and Head of SPIG Study Program, all distinguished Professor, Prof. Epon, Prof. Mamat, Prof. Dede Sugandi, perhaps, Prof. Nok, and all my colleagues, lecturers, and participants. Hello, everyone. Okay, and we have also guests here. We have Bu Beta from the Faculty of Architecture, Industrial Technology, FPIPS. And also we have our partner here from RDI, Bu Vidya. Thank you for coming as well. And then also I want to say hello to the participant in the Zoom meeting. I think we have like 50 participants in the Zoom meeting. So hello everyone in the Zoom meeting. Maybe we can see it later. So thank you for all. This is the International Guest Lecture Series. So this is part of our long collaboration between University of Leeds and I think Geography Department. Yeah. So thank you very much, Professor John Lovett and Professor Paul for coming here. Professor Paul just coming on Sunday. So he has one day city tour yesterday to get insight of what is actually Bandung. This is also his first time coming here to Bandung. Okay, and so in this occasion, we still have our outstanding presentation from our prominent speakers. And in this session, we will talk about the urban sustainability. And then, yeah, we also want perhaps later Dr. Roger can come, but yeah, he cannot come because he's quite sick. Also, Dr. David, yeah, before planning to come. So we are welcome them to come in the future. Okay, and before the presentation begin, please allow me to introduce the first speaker, which is Professor John Lovett.
Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, it is our great honor to introduce our esteemed speaker, Professor John Lovett, Chair in Global Challenges at the University of Leeds, School of Geography in the United Kingdom. Professor Lovett holds a Ph.D. in Ecology and Biogeography from the University of Wales, Bangor, where he conducted pioneering research on the Eastern Arc Mountain of Tanzania, one of the world's most important biodiversity hotspots. He also earned his bachelor's degree in botany with honors from the University of Oxford, reflecting a strong academic foundation in environmental and plant sciences. Professor Lovett is a globally recognized interdisciplinary environmental researcher whose work bridges natural and social sciences to address some of the most pressing global issues of our time, including natural resource management, renewable energy, and sustainable development. With decades of experience working across countries from Nepal and Tanzania to Mexico and Lebanon, his research has shaped international environmental policy and informed real-world energy strategies for institutions like the African Development Bank and national governments. At Leeds, he leads cutting-edge projects on clean energy systems and global sustainability, inspiring students and researchers alike to rethink how societies manage their environmental in a rapidly changing world. Please join me in welcoming Professor John Lovett, a visionary scholar and passionate advocate for environmental innovation and global collaboration.
Okay, so thank you for joining us, Professor John Lovett. How are you? Yeah. Later, after the keynote speaker presentation, we can have a question and answer session. So if you have any question for our speaker, please raise your hand during the Q&A session. Yeah. But I think it will be nice if Professor Paul also can join us now directly. Yeah. And then, but yeah, I will introduce who is actually Professor Paul Chatterton, please.
Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished guests, it is my great pleasure to introduce Professor Paul Chatterton, Professor of Urban Futures at the School of Geography, University of Leeds, United Kingdom. Professor Chatterton holds a Ph.D. from the University of Bristol and a first-class Bachelor with Honours in Geography from the University of Newcastle. His academic journey reflects deep commitment to understanding and shaping sustainable, equitable, and vibrant cities. For more than 20 years, Professor Chatterton has combined rigorous research with bold action. His work spans sustainable urban development, climate and ecological emergency response, community co-production, housing innovation, and participatory action research. He has published over 50 peer-reviewed articles and chapters, and authored influential books that explore how cities can be transformed for social and environmental justice. Beyond academia, he has worked with activists, councils, and civic groups to promote bottom-up urban change, from transforming derelict buildings and developing housing cooperatives to supporting climate action networks. His thought leadership and community engagement make him a powerful voice in shaping the future of sustainable cities around the world. Please join me in welcoming Professor Paul Chatterton.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Paul. Welcome to UPI. Okay, and the first talk I think will be delivered by Professor John Lovett about urban metabolism. Yeah, okay, so please, 30 minutes, the floor is yours.
Selamat pagi. It's a great pleasure to be back here in UPI again in Bandung and back in Indonesia. I have been here now quite a few times, so it almost feels like home, and to see my old friends here as well. Okay, I'm going to talk about urban metabolism and cities as living organisms. Oh, thank you. Is this one okay? Or... yeah, okay. So I'll use this one. And one of the things that I've got very interested in recently is complex system dynamics. And I think we can learn a lot from complex system dynamics when we are studying cities. And cities are very important. They're drivers of economic growth and prosperity. They're centers of population density and migration. But they're also complicated places, and they're structurally complex when built over time. A city can be built already of several smaller villages which retain their original structures. And we can see this in Bandung. There are many places where there are little villages that the city has engulfed. And they can also include industrial areas that can fall into disuse when the industry declines. As a result, they often contain structural inequalities, such as places where poor people live in low quality environments and rich people live in better environments, such as places that don't flood, are not contaminated with waste, and have nice views and green spaces. Cities contain diverse environments and habitats, tall buildings, waterways, parks, wasteland bordering transport infrastructure, and so on. And they're complicated places, socially, economically, and environmentally. Now, interestingly, here in Indonesia, there's a special situation, the new capital of Nusantara, which is one of the things that we're researching in the net zero network here in Indonesia. And this offers an amazing opportunity to try and get things right. So next slide. So let's have a look at some of the basic characteristics of cities. They use a lot of energy. In general, about half a country's energy requirement goes on cities. The other half goes to heavy industry, such as mining. If the energy is generated using fossil fuels, then the energy generation emits greenhouse gases and uses oxygen. And of course, if it's emitting greenhouse gases, then that causes the problem of global warming that was mentioned earlier on this morning. Nutrients and materials flow in, solid and liquid waste flows out. And cities consist of a built physical infrastructure, and within that physical built infrastructure, materials, living beings, and liquids move around and within them. And the day-to-day activity of a city consists of myriads of individual interactions, which leads to a complex systems behavior, which is mathematically rather interesting and opens up new ways of understanding the nature of cities and how to govern them. Next slide. If we think about what else has a list of characteristics that cities have, it's a living organism with a structural body that contains organs for different functions. The other similarity with living organisms is the complex system and myriads of individual interactions leading to complex systems behavior, such as the relationship between nutrition, digestion, metabolism, and mental well-being. Slide. The similarity of cities to living organisms led to the concept of urban metabolism, in which cities absorb and consume materials and energy and excrete waste. This idea was proposed in the 1970s, before complex systems were well understood, and how a myriad of individual interactions can lead to dramatic changes in the urban metabolism. Slide. Let's imagine that our city organism changes in its character as a result of a myriad of individual interactions within its body. If they were humans, perhaps they might go to the gym or to Pilates class or yoga. They would build muscles and improve their flexibility. A city organism can do this by building the muscle of generating its own electricity with rooftop solar. Let's see what happens in a real city when this occurs by looking at the example of South Africa. South Africa is interesting because there are frequent power shortages and load shedding with blackouts and brownouts due to the failure of the state electricity company, Eskom, to provide enough grid electricity. This graph is from Eskom, which is an electricity company like the Indonesian PLN, and it compares two identical days. First is a cold day with poor solar PV in the top line, and a warmer day with strong solar PV in the bottom line. Let's look at the graph for the effect of household rooftop solar PV. At 12:23 p.m., there was a 4,550 megawatt difference in dispatchable generation due to rooftop PV alone. This is 4.5 gigawatts of demand removed from the grid without a new power station, without procurement, without policy-driven mega projects. This has huge implications for both urban and national planning. This demonstrates the effect of many small individual actions of adding solar PV to households, driven by the incentive of frequent grid load shedding. A few things stand out. Behind the meter PV is already operating as a massive invisible power plant. South Africans installed it to escape load shedding, but the collective effect is an unintentional distributed virtual power plant. A midway dip of 4.5 gigawatts is equivalent to more than 5 full-sized coal power plant units. This is structurally changing South Africa's load curve. Demand is collapsing in the middle of the day and shifting to the early evening peak. That's why the brown curve, the high PV day, has a deeper midday valley and a sharper evening rise. But it's also an early warning signal, signaling an opportunity. By creating a smarter electricity system with heating and electricity storage when the sun shines, it's possible to flatten the evening peak, absorb more PV, minimize backup peaking plants, reduce system costs, and build a flexible grid. So when we're talking about the transition to net zero, it's already starting. The city is changing its internal characteristics. It's not waiting for policy, and it's certainly not waiting for mega projects. South Africans have already altered the physics of the grid by changing the city organism. They built a distributed energy system by accident, and now the question is whether it's possible to develop it by design. From a city governance perspective, this characteristics of a city as a complex system can be harnessed to keep costs down and efficiency up, but it needs wise and visionary urban planning and strategy. Next slide. Let's see if it's worth checking to see if South Africa is a unique example. But we can see the same is happening in other countries. For example, in Pakistan, increases in national grid electricity costs and decreases in household solar panel costs resulted in a remarkable change. In only 8 months, citizens built the equivalent of half the country's national electric grid without waiting for government or utilities. How did this happen? Cheap solar panels, TikTok tutorials showing how to install them, and farmers leading the way by swapping diesel pumps for solar. The results were that diesel sales dropped 35% in 1 year, families slashed costs and gained energy independence, and national demand on the grid actually declined because of so much distributed generation. Slide. This is not just happening in so-called developing countries. Australians are now installing more than 1,000 home batteries a day with wide-ranging ramifications for the grid. In the 6 months since the federal rebate scheme came into effect, households have installed 184,000 home batteries, adding a whopping 4.3 gigawatts storage capacity. It's not just the number of systems. The average battery size continues to increase, jumping from 16 kilowatt hours in July to over 25 kilowatt hours today. That is far more storage than the average household needs, which leaves plenty of capacity for exporting energy back to the grid exactly when it's most valuable. Currently, most households with rooftop solar still export 70 to 80% of their generation. This is mostly in the middle of the day, driving low grid demand and negative prices. But modeling from green energy markets shows how quickly this profile changes once batteries are added. A typical 10 kilowatt solar system paired with a 25 kilowatt battery absorbs more daylight solar, supports the household overnight, and exports in the evening when the grid needs it most. In both summer and winter, this fundamentally reshapes the demand curve, and the market is responding. Retail offers are now emerging that reward this behavior, offering very high evening feed-in tariffs, but zero at other times, sending a clear price signal about when the grid needs energy and when it doesn't. This is the key point. Home batteries don't just benefit individual households. At scale, they flatten the curve, reduce negative prices, lower peak demand, and push down wholesale prices for everyone. This shows how fast the world can shift when technology gets cheap enough and people take energy into their own hands. This complex behavior of the myriad of individual interactions of our city organism can lead to some problems in an economy that doesn't plan or recognize complexity. Changes in grid versus distributed electricity generation can affect availability and cost of electricity for industry and mining. In a highly regulated economy, domestic power consumption subsidies, generation and grid infrastructure for heavy consumers of power. Shifting to distributed individual generation can mean that these subsidies are no longer available to capital-intensive industries. Slide. What would happen if a city's complex behavior pattern shifts to another sector connected to net zero? Food consumption. Different types of food require different amounts of energy to produce and create different quantities of emissions. If our city metabolism required less meat-based foods as material inputs, then the quantity of greenhouse gas emissions would change markedly because meat requires much more energy to produce and produces much more greenhouse gas emissions. This can be done by changes in individual behavior, perhaps stimulated by prices that internalize the full cost of production and environmental damage. Or they could be done by regulation or social nudging, such as introducing national meat-free Mondays, which has been done in many other countries. Right. Changes to the characteristics of the city organism can be made in the circulation of water with the development of water-sensitive urban design to increase the efficiency of water use and risk of flooding. And this is something that would be very important in Bandung because of the problems of flooding risk. Slide. Water-sensitive urban design can help with improving the quality of biodiversity and nature areas in the city with blue-green corridors. And access to nature is well known to be important for well-being and mental health. Now, this is a story from Leeds. You see this a picture of the bird here. This bird is called a peregrine. And the University of Leeds, we have a big tower in the middle of the university called the Parkinson Tower. And we have peregrines nesting on that tower. And people, they come to watch the peregrines fly because we have this iconic hawk right in the center of the city in the university. Next slide. So how can we improve the governance of cities? One way is to consider cities as living organisms. If we think of cities as living organisms with a myriad of individual interactions, then we can also ask, can complex system analysis help? If we consider cities as complex systems, then we can use theories such as self-organized criticality and anti-fragility to make better cities that are more resilient to shocks and stress. Simple things we can do to improve city governance are things like to prevent over-regulation, prevent randomization, and maintain the ability of the city organism to be a complex system and self-organized. Next slide. So what kind of tools would you use to maintain a city's ability to self-organize? I've talked a lot about net zero, and I've used the example here of the way that lots of individual interactions can contribute towards net zero. But there are other aspects, making cities safe for women, for example, to have social justice, to have access to nature, to improve flood and drought resilience, and to minimize impact on the surrounding environment. And the kind of tools that we can use are the economics of markets, laws, and virtue ethics to improve the governance of our city. Next slide. And one way of doing this is by using the Sustainable Development Goals. And these 17 goals are all things that we as individuals can work towards within our city organism. Okay, terima kasih, thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor John Lovett, for the very interesting presentation. You may sit now because yeah, later we will have a discussion. So thank you. It's very interesting to see about urban metabolism. Yeah, you give us analogy city as our body and how actually to change behavior for the city as like we change our behavior towards, for example, a better health. We are doing Pilates, yoga, building our muscle, and how to do it within the city. So it was very interesting. Okay, participants, you will have answer and question and answer session later after we finish our talks from the speakers. So you can raise your hand later. And then for the participants in the Zoom, you can type it in the chat box, or later you can also have a chance to raise your hand. Okay, so that was an interesting presentation from Professor John Lovett, and now we are waiting presentation from Professor Paul Chatterton, who also will talk about how to save the city, right? And Professor Paul was like making this book. Yeah, he gave some books for us also to put in our library. Thank you so much, Professor. But yeah, I think he will share also the PDF, yeah, to the participant who also join this, so you can read this book as well in the soft copy file. Okay, so thank you very much, and then please, you have 30 minutes. The floor is yours.
I am thrilled to be here. Thank you very much for this invite. This is such an honor to be able to address you all and speak to you today. I'm really thrilled to be here. So what I'm going to do in the next 20 or 30 minutes is outline some of the key ideas I have been developing in terms of how to build urban futures. But importantly, in terms of some of the challenges, some of the real challenges we face. Next slide. So what I will cover today, next slide, please, is I'm going to start by looking at our shared agenda, this polycrisis, and my response as what I call a scholar activist, and what that means in terms of some of the work I have been doing in terms of how do we get into emergency mode in terms of tackling what I call the triple emergencies, the social, the ecological, and the climate emergencies that we face as a global humanity. Next slide, please. Okay, what is our shared agenda? Why must we work together? Okay, so we don't just have one crisis, we have multiple cascading crises, what we call a global polycrisis, yeah? And it comes together through climate and ecological breakdown, some of the things that John's been talking about, but the intense inequalities of our age, where 60,000 billionaires hold the same global wealth as 50% of the world's population. 60,000 billionaires, yeah? The same amount of wealth as the bottom 50% of humanity. Okay, we are living in unique times. Mass migration, far-right nationalism, what I call the neoliberal tech giants, yeah? The Amazons, the Jeff Bezoses of this world, right? The global tech giants and their influence, but also the neo-colonial extractive economy. And I'm going to touch on that because we don't live in a colonial era anymore. We live in a deeply neo-colonial era. And I want to look at that extractive economy and the impacts it's having around the world. And then the continuing wars and genocide and imperialism, which is shaping our abilities to create sustainable cities. Yeah. Next slide. Okay. So my response, sorry, that's just off the text is slightly off the slide, but I'm a scholar activist and I work inside and outside the academy. Yeah. But the key thing for me is universities are transformative actors in their place. And I've been really excited to see the amount of institutions yeah, in places like Bandung, and your universities as place-based actors for real transformation. Yeah, so what I'd encourage you to do is think about how your practice goes inside and outside the university to make links with social actors for transformation. But importantly, how do we start to experiment to create that resilient system change and what I call this civic middle, where we're creating a new kind of economy within places, a well-being economy, which will be our survival container for the future resilience. Next, and those are some examples of some of the projects I've been working on over the last 25 years to build place-based resilience. And I brought some examples I'll leave at the end. You can have a look at some of the kinds of publications I've been creating as a scholar activist. Next slide. Okay, and I've been building lots of civic climate resilience projects, and here's some of the projects I've been working on, creating green spaces, working with a group called Climate Action Leeds, where I've created this community newspaper on climate action in the city of Leeds, bringing together all the amazing things happening in our city. And I also work with this amazing coalition called the Leeds Donut Economics Coalition. And I'll be talking about donut economics later in terms of the new framework for living, thriving within planetary boundaries. Next slide. And this is one of my major projects. This is my house. This is where I live. I've been doing actual research on building zero carbon housing. My house is made from straw. I live in a straw house. Straw, timber, and lime. So it's a naturally carbon sequestering materials, creating zero carbon housing, yeah, energy efficient, highly insulated housing in the very cold north of England. We are a cooperative. We live together communally. It's called collective housing, and we use next slide, please. We use we're developing affordable homes. If there's one of the key systems we have to change in cities, it's affordable housing. How do we create more affordable housing in our cities, especially for the next generation? Because one of the key things about the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, is how we create affordable housing, safe and affordable places to live. And we do that through a unique economic model, which I can talk about in the questions, where the value of the houses are linked to wages and not local house prices. And what I'm interested in is how can this be a transferable model to change the housing system globally? Next slide, please. So that's what we do. Basically, our houses are a domestic carbon bank. They sequester 45 tons of, 34 tons of greenhouse gases per home, and we're made from natural materials. They're straw. Should we change the? Okay, is this okay? This might be a little bit better, yeah? Great. Okay, thank you for that. And so there's the straw that we build our houses from. Next slide. And because we're a cooperative, we live communally, we eat together, we play together, we work together. So we're a housing cooperative of 50 people, showing that life does not have to be socially atomized, yeah, and it can be affordable as well. Next slide. Now, one of the key, I'm going to start talking about my framework now. One of the key frameworks I outlined in my previous book, which is Unlocking Sustainable Cities, is this twin move, right? So this is my other book, Unlocking Sustainable Cities, and I will leave a copy as well, which is, there's this twin move. We have to unlock innovation, but we have to lock down what harms. We have to resist and we have to create, because there are some systems which are undermining human life, human flourishing, and there are other systems which enable human flourishing. So it's that twin movement I will keep coming back to. Next slide. I'm going to take you on a very quick journey of my book. I've written it. There are some illustrations in here, some cartoons. I've written this for university students and school students. Very accessible book. And I called it a guide for emergency action. Yeah. What do we actually do if we say we are facing emergencies? How would we act differently if this is actually a climate and ecological emergency? What would that mean for the kinds of teaching and research that we would do? So let's have a look at this. Next slide, please. It starts with carbon challenge, some of the things that John's outlined, the transition to net zero, we must think about that very differently. Here on this graph, you can see the bar chart. You can see how much we've already released since the beginning of the European Industrial Revolution. There's a lot of gigatons of carbon out there, 1,500 gigatons of greenhouse gas emissions. Yeah. Now we know that to hold to a safe global budget, that 1.5 degrees, humanity can only emit about 420 gigatons. That's the middle bar graph. But we know there's about 1,000 gigatons left in the ground, right? So we must not extract all those fossil fuels. So keeping those fossil fuels, coal, oil, and gas in the ground is absolutely essential, right? So that is the challenge. We need to transition away from fossil fuels as quickly as possible. So the COP30 in Belém, you know, the COP process is not doing its job enough to hold those temperatures to 1.5 degrees. And that's why we need that strong voice, especially from countries like Indonesia, those rapidly, you know, mature now economies in Asia and across Africa and Latin America, develop that solidarity to say to the Western countries who have dominated the carbon position, we need to move away from fossil fuels. And you can see that inequality here in this graph, yeah? Not everybody has developed this problem equally, right? We know that it's 1% of humanity in particular places that is pushing this carbon crisis. Next slide, please. And this is an interesting graph in terms of who is responsible. The majority countries that are responsible are the European and Northern Hemispheric countries, you know, the European Union and the USA. And we know China is coming on stream now, but historically it's still USA and Europe. And you can see Asia and Indonesia. There's a tiny block still, right, in terms of that global responsibility. So if we look at the next slide, what we can see is if we put the colonial legacy into this, and I teach a lot on the British colonial legacy of carbon responsibility. I've been looking at some data because we're in Indonesia now in terms of the different carbon legacies of colonial powers in the Netherlands, but equally I've got graphs for Britain, looking at the British colonial legacy. We know that Indonesia's carbon contribution is growing fast because you're a rapidly maturing economy. But if we take the responsibility of the colonial period out of here and put it back on Netherlands, the impact of Indonesia is much smaller globally. And that's an important picture because this is not just about the current situation. This is about the historical record from the 17th century onwards. Yeah, it's about historic responsibility and future reconciliation. Next slide, please. So let's do a thought experiment very quickly on like, what does this journey to net zero look like by the 2030s? Does anybody know, can anybody tell me what is the annual carbon budget of the city, sorry, annual carbon emissions of the city of Bandung, roughly? Do we know? In millions of tons? Probably, I don't know. I've seen figures, it could be 10 million tons a year. And we could find that out. So we could find that out as a learning point. I know that in my own town, Leeds is a city of 1 million people. Yeah, we create 4 million tons of greenhouse gases every year. Okay, we have calculated that Leeds' safe budget all time for all people is 40 million tons. Right? Now, if we're using 4 million tons a year, we can calculate the math. We know we've got 10 years left of a carbon budget, right? So once we've used that 40 million tons, then we have to be net zero. And this is what this graph shows. So the line along the top is the business as usual line. If we keep on that line, we will use our carbon budget within 10 years. That's too early. We are not making the transition fast enough. The red bit is the carbon we can use to keep to 1.5 degrees, the Paris target. All the gray area is the carbon that we cannot use in the city of Leeds, right? So we have to get on that transition line very rapidly. The longer we leave it, the steeper the red line becomes, right? Now, what happens if we add what we call scope 3 emissions? So scope 3 emissions are those emissions that come from into the locality from imported carbon. Everything we have contains carbon and it comes into the locality, and that's called Scope 3 emissions, right? So if we add those, actually, our annual emissions go up to 11 million tons. Sorry, could you just go back one slide, so the black box, one more slide. Sorry, go. Oh, sorry, it's not, it's, okay. You were meant to be able to see this without the black box, but it doesn't matter. So basically, 11 million tons is the annual amount that Leeds emits if you include all what we call consumption emissions. So what we know is that consumption is driving climate breakdown, especially what we call luxury consumption. Everyday consumption is fine. Some of the things that John's been talking about, having the lights on, using computers, they're everyday emissions. It's the excess luxury emissions which are a problem, yeah? So if we just go forward a slide, yeah, and then, so this one, so basically, we know there's a huge carbon inequality. UK, for example, is 10 million tons of greenhouse gases per year. Indonesia, about 2.5 tons. I gave this talk in Ghana 6 months ago in Accra. You know, greenhouse gas emissions per person there are less than 1 ton a year. So there are still huge inequalities, right, in terms of how much greenhouse gases we all emit per person per year in our localities. Next slide. That's okay, we can just continue now, yeah? Okay, so there is the challenge. In the face of that challenge, we need to have a strategy. We need to think strategically. So in my book, I outline a strategy. I call it Learn, Act, Build. It's a strategic approach to changing places. Yeah, so let's have a look at some of the brief parts of this strategy. So next slide, please. So it starts with identifying the challenges, bridging what we call this no-do gap. So the no-do gap, we know this up here, but we do this. So we need to match them. It's called a knowledge action gap. We need to match what we do with the knowledge that we have, yeah? All the amazing knowledge locked up in this university has to fundamentally transform Bandung, Java, Indonesia in 10 years' time. Next slide, please. Climate justice. Now, this is one of the key sentences that I always repeat every single day to my students. The least responsible are the most affected. The least responsible are the most affected. It's quite simply a matter of climate justice. As we build alternatives, we must build climate justice into this. Remember, the least responsible, the most affected, right? If we build it into policy, we change policy. Next slide, please. And where do we focus our change efforts? We've only all got a certain amount of hours in the day. There's lots of different places we can intervene. The point of extraction, the mines, production of the factories, consumption where we buy goods, or decisions where are made. So there's lots of different places we have to put our efforts to change this complex system. Next slide. And it's all about the economy. It's all about what we are doing as a nation and a city. Yeah? So the economy is the driving heart of these converging emergencies. The type of economy we build will determine how safe and resilient our future is. It's as simple as that. And the kind of things that John's been talking about in creating a circular economy, a metabolic economy, are absolutely essential here. We need to shift from ceaseless economic growth to a circular, thriving, and well-being economy. Yeah? And I'll talk about what that means in a minute. Next slide. And who will do this? So you will all do this. We are called the Breakaway Coalition. Researchers, civic activists, business leaders, and public leaders will come together in what I call a breakaway coalition, yeah, to connect and create different kinds of policy in places. Next slide. So these are the players in my book. So in my book, I talk about the players who will do this. Yeah, who are the people who will make this change? And there's some of the people. Because of lack of time, I won't go through them. But there's everything from the scientist, the teacher, the entrepreneur, the activist, the consumer, even the non-human will play a part in transforming their places. Yeah. So think about all the different coalitions of actors who will need to be mobilized. Next slide. So I'm just going to end on looking at 2 or 3 big moves that we can make. So we have the strategy, we have the players. Now we need to make some moves. We need to do some things. Let's have a look at a couple, yeah? Next slide. So the big one is car culture. And we've seen it in Bandung, right? This is not about the individual car, the individual motorized vehicle. This is about a system, which we call car culture, which has been built up through technology, institutions, cultural practices, finances, advertising for the last 100 years. Now, in the late part of last century, there were just before the 20th century, there were 20,000 cars in the United States. Now, globally, there's over 2.5 billion cars. It's one of the most successful consumer products on the planet. Now, when I visit places like Bandung and my own city in Leeds, what we have done is we have normalized policy failure. We cannot envisage a place beyond the motor vehicle, right? What we need to do is think about what the system change is, where we can start to talk about the cultural practices, the technological practices, and the economy where we are no longer dependent on car culture. We cannot even think beyond that. So the first move is a story and a cultural change of life without a motor vehicle, right? And that's the really big part of system change, is the cultural part of system change. Next slide. There's lots of examples like Vision Zero, 15-minute cities, active travel cities. Places all over the world are experimenting with reducing car dependency. Not because they hate cars, but because it is the least efficient way to get people around in cities. The least efficient. It's a terrible way of moving people around in dense urban environments. It's the worst kind of human innovation when we could do so much better. Next slide. So we can reimagine public travel, free, electrified, extended networks, re-regulation, public ownership, all those kinds of things. Next slide. And the new city economy. So what keeps us moving around is the kind of economy we have, right? So we have to think about, how do we build community wealth? How do we build civic cooperatives? How do we embed what I call universal basic services, right? So the basics of a good life are guaranteed. And how do we start to levy wealth taxes to redistribute the vast amounts of global wealth to place-based thriving, place-based well. Next slide. A few examples here. I will share these slides so you could look at these examples in your own time, yeah? But my books are full of examples. Universal basic services is a free access to services that underpin our lives. Transport, energy, housing, food, creating a minimum threshold of service provision so you can have a good life, yeah? Next slide. Community wealth building, making money circulate locally. So every rupiah, every pound or dollar that you spend stays in your place, making places wealthier. Next slide. So creating democratic ownership over employment, yeah, so we can control our workplaces. Next slide. And this donut economics. Has anybody heard of donut economics? Yeah, so donut economics is a fantastic framework to look at basically how humans can live in what we call a safe and thriving place for humanity. At a different point, I can come and do a whole lecture on donut economics. Next slide. And what I call emergency placemaking. We need to have a different approach to placemaking. And that's what I've been doing at my Lilac project, the housing project. So next slide. And there are examples all over the world of people using new types of civic technologies, new kinds of custom build, cooperative housing, land trust, changing ownership patterns to change the way we develop housing. Next slide. And then the final one is acting up for nature, actually putting non-human species back into the equation is really important. This is a new deal between humans and non-humans. It goes beyond, it starts with creating new natural spaces, but actually we have to think of ourselves differently in terms of humans, right? And our relationship to non-humans, to animals and plants. Until we do that, we will continue to dominate and extract and reduce non-human species. And that's a big existential change. And what I'm interested in, this debate is very different in different countries. So the debate in Europe will be very different in Southeast Asia. That will be one of the things I would like to know more about. Next slide. So things like biophilic cities. How do we fall in love with nature in cities? If we don't love nature, we won't protect it, right? So it's about creating the technical infrastructure, but it's about being passionate for natural environments and the benefits that they offer us deeply in our hearts, right, as humans. Next slide. Blue-green infrastructure, John's talked about. Next slide. But urban farming has next slide, please. Bringing food production back into cities, right? Absolutely essential to future resilience. There are some fantastic examples around the world. Next slide. And then the final one, civic democracy. Acting on climate is not enough if it does not bring social gains, right? For the poorest in our communities, they will not be interested in technocratic climate change. Next slide. And land trusts are really key here. Democratic ownership of land. Next slide. We can go forward a couple of slides. Next slide. So, final slides. It's 2030s. It's 2030. What happened? 4 years away. We have to imagine the future. What is the future like? Yeah? Did we make it? What does it feel like? What story do you tell about the next decade? What does it feel like to live in Bandung in 5 years' time? What have you done? What does it feel like? How has it changed? It's so important. Next slide. So this is the last slide. Think big, but start small and start now. What can we do together? We're here doing joint seminars, planetary breakdown, planet repairs, scholar activism. We could co-produce resources together. We could develop virtual classrooms. I would love to do a virtual classroom between students here and my students in Leeds to have conversations about what it means to live in Leeds, Bandung. Yeah? Creating global action research projects. What are the common themes that connect us, which we can work together on? And civic initiatives. What's happening in Bandung and Java? How can we learn? Inverting north-south learning to south-north learning. Yeah. And how can we create living laboratories of experiments? Yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing some more things in more projects in Bandung. We have to experiment. We have to get out there and do things to see what works. John's been a pioneer of this for decades, trying things out, seeing what works, building the future right here and right now. So thank you very much. Thanks.
Okay, hello. Thank you very much. Hello. Thank you for your very comprehensive talks, a very interesting one. Okay, so you are really the scholar activist. I can see that. Okay. So thank you very much, Professor Paul and Professor Lovett. So yeah, I highlight several things which is very interesting. There's also, I think I heard a new term, carbon colonialism. That's new for me. I heard about donut economics, but carbon colonialism is interesting. So thank you for highlighting that. But yeah, we have a lot of things. I mean, this will also triggering, for example, here we have undergraduate students, master and doctoral program. also in 3 study program for geography education, geographic information science study program, and also mapping survey and geographic information. And then we have also our participant from different disciplines in the Zoom meeting. Yeah, I think I saw from University of Jember, yeah, University of Islam in Bandung. I saw that in the participant in Zoom meeting. So yeah, feel free to ask to these two speakers and then about this city, because yeah, I hope it's triggering a lot of question in your mind. So I will open a first session. So we will have 3 questions. We will check here if there are a question and also in the Zoom meeting. So is there anyone who want to raise a question? You can raise your hand, please. Okay, wow. We have several questions. Okay, we will start 3 questions from this room meeting, and then 1 question from 1 or 2 questions from the Zoom. Okay, okay. So please raise your hand. Okay, Pak Nandi. Okay, Pak Nandi would like to ask, and then okay, 1 from this side. Yeah. And then is there anyone from above? Okay, 1 from above. Okay. So Panandi, please, committee, please give the mic to Panandi. Okay. Okay, this is Dr. Nandi. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. So good to see you again, Prof. John and Prof. Paul. Thank you very much for coming to our university. So I am Nandi, one of the lecturer at this department. Thank you for very insightful speakers today. I have a lot of questions in my mind, but I started from the contextual of Indonesia, especially Indonesia provide a unique context of sustainable cities. And they are ranging from the mega cities like Jakarta, rapidly growing secondary cities like Semarang, and then vulnerable coastal area because we are surrounding coastal cities as well. And to the development of the new capital city in IKN Nusantara. And this diverse urban condition highlight real challenges related to urban growth, climate risk, housing, mobility, and also governance. With this context in mind, I would like to raise a few questions and to invite a reflection for both of you, because Indonesian cities are growing faster than planning capacity. So what should be to the top priority to manage rapid urban growth without increasing inequality? And we know that we also like a supermarket of disaster, flooding, land subsidence, climate risk affect many Indonesian cities. So how can climate adaptation and disaster risk reduction be better integrated into daily urban planning? And of course, if we are discussing about the transportation system, despite MRT and LRT development, yeah, in Jakarta especially, we have, and now we also have a high-speed train from Jakarta to Bandung. So my question is, what practical policies can realistically reduce car and motorcycle dependency in Indonesian cities based on Leeds experience? And of course, if we're talking about IKN Nusantara is planned as a green and smart city, what key lesson from Leeds especially or UK cities should Indonesia apply to ensure that our IKN becomes truly sustainable and inclusive? Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. That's quite a lot. So thank you very much, Dr. Nandi. Would you like to get it together, the question from 3 participants, or you answer directly? Okay, so but you get the question?
Okay, thank you, Annisa, and thank you back, Nandi, for that very interesting list of questions. I think I'll just focus on one aspect of those questions, and maybe Paul can follow this up as well, because I think it's something that relates to what Paul was talking about, and also what I was referring to when we think about complex dynamics within systems, and that's social justice, because social justice applies to several of the questions that you asked. Let's take a simple thing like flooding. So flooding in Bandung. My guess is, and perhaps you can correct me here, is that it's the poorer people who are subject to the flooding in Bandung, and even in Jakarta, where the land is sinking, it's the poorer people who are most affected. And if you think about a situation where instead of those poor people being affected by flooding, you had the richest people in the city being affected by the flooding, what do you think would happen then? There would be action. Things would shift, and decisive changes would happen to the city governance. So one of the things that can be done in order to tackle some of the questions that you asked is to ensure that there is adequate representation of all voices in the city, and it is the poorer people who are actually they're the workers of the city. They are if you like, the red blood cells that are going around the organism of the city, that are bringing oxygen to the other parts of the city organism. And if we lose those people, then the city will cease to function. You can't have the billionaires unless you have the people who are actually run the red blood cells in the bloodstream of the economy of the city. So a simple thing that can be done in city governance is to make sure that the voices of those people are well represented in the city planning. So when one poor person is being flooded in Bandung, they're having the same effect on city planning as if the mayor, the chief of the city, is being flooded in Bandung.
Okay, thank you, Professor John. So, okay, Paul, would you like to add something to that question? I think Pak Nandi had 3 questions, yeah. So I think you can have to answer the second question, yeah, about the transport system, like what actually practical policy, for example, just car dependent.
Sure. So practical policies to reduce car reduction, yeah. So for system change, we need financial change, we need institutional change, but importantly, in technological change, we have those, but importantly, we need change in culture and behavior. And that starts by having, and universities could lead this with civic actors, a city debate on mobility patterns, right? There needs to be a citywide debate on the role of the motor vehicle and the motorbike. Until you have that, you cannot start a conversation for citywide change. And this is really important. So we need skilled facilitators. So this needs to be owned by the top level, the chief executive or the mayor of Bandung, yeah? Needs to say, we're gonna start a citywide conversation about how we all move around. And we're gonna spend a couple of years getting everybody's opinion on it, right? What does everybody think, right? We start the conversation, and then we start some small experiments in particular places, particular neighborhoods, and then we start to take people to those neighborhoods. What's life like? Is it different? Did it work? Start to learn from those micro experiments, and then we start to build a citywide conversation about what works. Yeah, it takes time because if we don't bring people with us, we'll get misunderstanding, we'll get political controversies, and it just fails. Yeah. So lots of places around the world, Curitiba, fantastic, you know, in Brazil did the, you know, bus mass transit, but work with what you've got. So sometimes people rush into silver bullets, technological solutions, you know, mass transit, trams, electric vehicles, when sometimes the simplest system change comes from really simple solutions, active travel, walking and cycling. Yeah.
Okay, so can you hear me? Hello? This one is quite small. Can you hear me? Yeah, this one is better. Okay. So yeah, so active transport. Yeah. So sometimes we see, they call it, we see the elephant, but we didn't see the ants, right? The problem, which is we made something big, yeah, but we don't see the small thing that needs to change. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Very great. Yeah. I think, is it answer our question? Okay. Thank you, Dr. Nani, for your question. Okay. So please, okay, yeah, please, yeah, you can also say your name, from which study program are you, and your question. Okay. Oh yeah, for the speakers also, we have 3 certificate for best participant. So you can also decide which participants has the best question. Okay, later. Okay, okay, please. What's your name? Yeah.
Yes. Thank you for letting me to ask, but first I would like to introduce myself. My name is Muhammad Rifki Atorik, but you can call me Rifki. I'm majoring in geographic mapping and surveying information system. According on Professor Lovett's presentation, we could see that meat production such as beef, lambs, and so on generates higher greenhouse gas emissions than plant-based foods such as vegetables, etc. But on the other hand, not everyone comfortable with vegetarian diet, especially for a long time. So how should cities balance emission reduction goals with people's dietary needs and preference? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So you can answer it directly.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Annisa, and thank you for that very interesting question. Diet is one of the simple things that we can control as individuals and effect on the global climate and global sustainability. And if everybody shifted their diet, then this can have very big interactions with the way sustainability is reached globally. I appreciate that not everybody wants to drop meat from their diet, but it's probably also not a question of specifically eliminating meat totally from your diet, but just reducing the amount that you eat. If you reduce the amount that your body needs, for example, then that's going to reduce a lot. We know, for example, in countries that have high meat content in their diet, like in the US, there are also a lot of medical problems. For example, cancers of the gut are caused by high consumption of red meat. But it's a diet that is very strongly promoted by particular lobbyists and industry lobbyists within government. There's another problem associated with high meat diets, and that is antimicrobial resistance. That because the production of livestock and meat has moved to what is called factory farming, then it means that you get very large quantities of chickens together, very large quantities of cattle together, and those livestock are fed antimicrobials, antibiotics, and that is resulting in antibiotic resistance. So there is the potential for very serious health implications of that high meat diet. So the shift, the nudge to a lower meat diet, it doesn't mean to say that you have to give up meat, but you just have to eat enough for your body. I live in a rural area in the countryside in the UK, and the farmers around me are livestock farmers. They have sheep. And that particular style of farming actually maintains the biodiversity, beautiful biodiversity in the area. So I don't think we need to get rid of livestock farming completely. There are also ethical reasons why people don't want to eat meat and they want to get rid of livestock farming. We just need to reduce it to reasonable levels.
Okay, does it answer your question, Rizky? Okay, yeah, so reducing, not make it gone. So don't worry, you can still eat meat. And yeah, I think Paul also don't eat meat, right? Only fish, yeah. So do you think it's part of sustainable style?
I mean, it has to be. The question I've got for you is that, so what is the national debate like in Indonesia about reducing meat? Is it culturally possible?
Yeah, I think it's possible. Yeah, because meat, especially the cow, is like the most expensive one, right? So I think for chicken, it's like difficult, for example, to reduce it because everybody loves chicken raw, yeah. But yeah, I think it's just reducing that. Yeah, it's yeah, I think it's possible. Like one day without meat. Yeah.
Right. I mean, the tricky thing is we have delayed action for so long that now we're going to have to make some harder choices on meat, on flying, on cars, all these things we should have taken 30, 40 years ago when John was starting, you know, like when we've left it very late now. The longer we leave it, the harder the choices. Yeah.
Yeah, that's really true. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, I think we can start like one day without meat, then 6 days we can eat meat. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, Rizky. Okay. So please, one from above, then we can move to the question with online participant. Please, committer, please give the mic to the, or you can go. You can talk. Maybe I can hear you. Or you can go through the ladder first and then, yeah. Sorry. Oh, yeah, there's the mic.
Yeah, thank you, Bu Annisa. My name is Raffi Adiatma. I'm from Geographic Information Science Program Study. I have a question to Prof. Paul Chatterton. Most urban farms in the global south are locked into pest dependency with carbon-intensive infrastructure. In your view, can incremental place-based policies effectively decouple urban growth from carbon? Or do we need a radical settler spatial shock to meet net zero targets? Thank you.
Okay, Raffi, yeah. Raffi, can I repeat your question first because it's not really clear. But your question is whether to change radically or incrementally toward the net zero. Is it the point?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Can you get the point?
So it's different pathways for different places. Yeah, we call it the contraction and convergence model. So those people that have lived high consumption, high carbon lifestyles for many decades and centuries, they have a responsibility to contract rapidly. This is a global fair shares approach. And those places, especially in the global south, Latin America, Africa, Southeast Asia, should be given ecological space to develop, yeah, to have a basic quality of life. So we tackle inequality. So then we converge around a common point. So it's like this. And that common point is safe. But we need a global conversation about in the global north, yeah, that we will contract and in the global south that you are allowed to converge at a higher point. We don't, the difficult thing now, we have a breakdown in multinational relationships in the United Nations, so we do not have effective mechanisms to have that global conversation. But maybe you can have it here in Asia and we can have it in Europe, but it's difficult times, yeah?
Okay, thank you, Prof. Paul. Yeah, so hope that's answered the question. Yeah, Rafi. Okay, shall we move to the online participant? I think several people already raised their hand. Yeah, I think one is Professor Mamat moving from offline to online. Okay, so I think one from Professor Mamat and one is from Naufal. Yeah, so Professor Mamat, would you like to talk directly? Can you open the speaker, please? Please show in the screen. So
suara saya terdengar, Bu Annisa?
yes, maybe a little bit louder, Professor, because it's still very small.
Okay. Thank you for all. Yeah. I think sustainable cities as a development that integrated economic, social, and environmental balance. But the other hand, urban development problem or issue, yeah. I think climate change, air pollution, population density, high population density, and also social inequality. And my question, how can we raise public awareness so that we can participate maximally in urban development? Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So yeah, maybe for both of you, how to raise public awareness. Yeah.
I think one of the things that we have to be aware of is that if we don't take action, if we think again as the city as a living organism with its own metabolism, and if we don't look after our health, then we'll get sick and we will have problems. So we need to look after the health of our cities and the population within our cities. And if we do that, then sustainability and fairness and justice will flow from just that basic consideration of the health of the city organism. So one way of educating people, we mentioned just briefly the consumption of meat. If you eat a lot of red meat, you will get sick. You'll get cancer of the colon. If you have very intensive livestock rearing, that's going to result in antimicrobial resistance, and that's going to result in people getting sick. And we know from the global pandemic what happens and the kind of implications that has both socially and economically. So we need to say to ourselves, do we want to have a healthy city organism? Because if we have that healthy city organism, when we use that as an educational tool, then that's going to benefit the welfare of everybody who lives in the city.
Okay, thank you. Paul, maybe would you like to add something to that? How to raise public awareness, yeah, for this.
Well, one thing I've learned as a climate activist over 20 years is to stop talking about the climate and frame the change project as a social change project, that as we tackle climate change or climate breakdown, we improve quality of life, housing, transport, energy, food, yeah, all the basic things we depend on for a good life. So for me, I talk about what is a good life within the limits of the natural world. And that changes the debate, because it's talking about climate is very polarizing, yeah? It creates divisions between people. You either believe it or you don't believe it. But nobody can argue with a good life, yeah? We all want a good life. So that's for me the starting of the conversation. What are your basic needs in Bandung? What makes you happy, yeah? And how do we build that? So we know that it's not congestion, air quality, air pollution, bad food. You know, it's all the good things. And how do we build those in our city?
Interesting, yeah. So yeah, I think if we start talking like that, then everybody will like open their eyes and then pay attention. Okay, thank you very much, Professor Muhammad. Is that answer your question?
No,
I
no,
think so.
yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay. Okay, next question is from Muhammad Naufal. Would you like to open your mic and talk directly? Or should I read your question?
Okay, good morning. I apologize for not being able to turn on my camera and microphone due to technical limitation. So I send it via room chat. Sorry. Thank you.
Oh, okay, so I will just read your question. Okay. Okay, I will read your question. Good morning. It's from Muhammad Naufal. Yeah, he's in the Geographic Information Science Study Program. And then the question is, what are the main institutional and financial barriers in applying donut economics? He's interested in the concept. And community wealth building in Southeast Asian cities, and how can university and local communities contribute to overcoming this challenge? Okay. What the question? Yeah. Okay. Would you okay, Professor Paul will answer that.
There's two aspects. One is about ownership, land and assets and buildings. If the city and the municipality, communities, if they own assets, they can use them for climate and social resilience. We do not own the land and the building in our cities. We cannot redeploy them for safe functions. And the other aspect is how we talk about the economy. And I would love to know more about Java and Indonesia and how you talk about the economy. That's really important. But in Europe, in Northern Europe, we have a very difficult way of talking about the economy, that growth equals well-being, that growth in GDP, gross domestic product, is the only thing that matters. And we've become very confused about what the economy actually does. The economy, as you know, John can talk more about this, and I'd like to hear from John, and you know, is a market mechanism to meet the basics of life, yeah? And it's become very distorted at the moment. Our economies are extractive devices where value is concentrated, surplus value is concentrated in a minority of hands and corporate power. And therefore, we have huge distortions in the contemporary economy. So we have to start to talk about the economy differently and measure things differently. So we need to use different measurements, the index of sustainable economic wealth, other ways to measure the health of the local economy.
I absolutely agree with Paul that we have to change the dialogue on the economy and the way that we talk about it. What's happened is that, as Paul mentioned in his talk, that a lot of the wealth has accumulated. It's moved upwards into the hands of a very small number of people. And those people have been disproportionately influential in decision-making. The real way that an economy works, again, if you think back to complex system dynamics, thinking about the city as an organism, a living organism, the way that an economy works is the number of times money changes hands. So we shouldn't think about money as money. We should think about it as energy. And when you're changing hands, you're creating a transaction. You're moving a bit of energy from one person to another, and then they're using that bit of energy for another bit of activity. They might be using it to educate their children, or passing that bit of energy onto somebody else. And if you think about the money as energy flowing through the metabolic system of the city, then it means that, yeah, if I go out and I spend a little bit of my money, energy buying a cup of coffee, then that is the energy that is then flowing through the city's metabolism. Whereas if I just focus my money on, I don't know, buying something that I see on the internet from, we have Amazon here in Indonesia, and yeah, Shopee, yeah. Then that money flows upwards and it disappears out of the system. So that energy is lost from the system. Whereas if you're going to a small street trader, some individual, then that energy is flowing around. Are we answering the question there? Sorry, I was going off on one of my.
This answer the question, yeah. So yeah, but yeah, I think from the bold question from the online participant, I remember approach of stick and carrot, right? I mean, yeah, sometimes we have to use regulation, which is stick and but carrot incentive. But I think yeah, raising something like giving, like you know, it's in our mind, just giving. Okay, this is part of good life will be also fine. Not always like stick and carrot. Okay. Yeah.
I'll just add there something about. In the introductory talks, we talked about religion, and I think you must correct me if I'm wrong, but I think one of the fundamental tenets of the Islamic religion is giving and charity, and looking after. And again, that is that sort of transfer of energy from one bit of the system to the other bit of the system that maintains the functional cohesion of society.
Yeah, so thank you. Yeah, so that's also can be part of this metabolism. Yeah, so from our zakat, we call it zakat. Yeah, like transfer money, like as part of our cleaning ourselves. Yeah, that's very Islamic things. Okay, thank you so much. So, is there anyone from the online participant who would like to ask question again? Or if not, then we can have someone from here again, please. Okay, one person from here, and then, okay, one person from, okay, oh, the women now. Okay, please, yeah. One person from above, yeah, with the black hijab, yeah. Yeah, and then later one person from upstairs. Okay, okay, so please, the mic is yours.
Thank you for this opportunity. Let me introduce myself. My name is Dahlia Putri Sopara. I'm from Survey and Mapping Geography Informatic. So my question is, Bandung is struggling with extreme traffic and congestion and high carbon emission from private vehicles. So does the unlocking hidden land strategy from your slide include a minimum requirement for transit-oriented development to ensure that building inside the city center actually leads to a reduction in motorbike and car usage? So that's my question. Thank you.
Because I think of the limited time, but in this session we can collect together. Yeah, you can answer with one time. Okay, please the next. Yeah.
This.
Maybe you can come a bit so I can see your face. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone, and Professor. I want to ask a simple question, but before that, I want to introduce myself. My name is Muhammad Dion. Everyone call me Dio. I'm from Geographic Information of Science. And I want to ask a simple question. So we know that Bandung has one of the worst traffic jam in Indonesia. So my question is, how to persuade citizens in Bandung to use a public transportation, and which kind of transportation that effective the most? Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Dio or Rio? Dio.
Dio.
Dio ya?
Dio with D.
Oh, Tio. Okay.
Dio.
Dio. Okay. Okay, thank you ya. Okay, so one more question from above, please. Committee, please. Did you get the mic? Oh, it's coming.
Test. First of all, thank you. My name is Saska.
Can you speak louder? Yeah.
My name is Saska. I am from Geography Information Science major. I have a question. If current urban climate policies are often measured by carbon reduction alone, what critical geographical indicators are we missing that would be better reflect through urban resilience and spatial equity? Thank you.
Can you repeat it one more time? Yeah, it's not really clear. Yeah.
Okay.
Lovett?
If urban climate policies are often measured by carbon reduction alone, what critical geographical indicators are we missing that would be better reflect through urban resilience and spatial equity?
Okay, yeah, I got the point. Thank you, Aska. Yeah. Okay, so please, Paul and John, which one? We have 3 questions. One from Dahlia, one from Dio, and one from Aska. Yeah, but I think it's related. Yeah, Dahlia to build the sustainable cities, and then Dio how to persuade citizens to reduce traffic jam. Yeah, also. And then Aska how, yeah, because to measure the sustainable city is with carbon, but yeah, what actually the critical geographic indicator, maybe other indicator that can, yeah, we use to have this kind of urban resilience. Yeah.
Everywhere I go in Britain and the world, the same conversations come up about frustrations with the mobility system and the car dominance. It's a global problem, yeah? And it starts with reimagining the mobility system, right? Because there's a pyramid hierarchy of how you allocate precious urban space, different types of mobility, right? And most places have got the pyramid upside down, completely the wrong way. They dedicate all the space to the private car, right? But here's how you design a sustainable urban mobility system. You flip it. At the top, for short journeys of less than a mile, you provide good walking and pedestrian facilities, right? And then for the next level of space, you provide micro mobility through electric cycles, right? And then you do mass transit and light rail and public transport. So electric buses, trams, light rail. And then you do heavy rail. And then if there is anything left, you provide space for motor vehicles. And sometimes there is no space left, right? So that's how you do it. But we do it exactly the upside down. We live in an upside down world, a world that is completely wrong. And it's a failure, not just of public policy, because it is a failure of public policy. This is just a policy issue, but it's a failure of imagination. So I keep going back to my key point. You need to start a public debate in Bandung, say, we will not tolerate this anymore. We want change. In the Netherlands, in the 1950s, cities were dominated by cars. There was no space for bicycles. It took them a massive civil movement to say, we do not want this. And in 40 years, they completely transformed their society where everybody gets around on a bicycle and walking. It can be done. Bandung could be a cycling and walking paradise in 20 years. It just needs commitment and action and vision. That's it. Do it. You do it.
Thank you, Paul. It's nice to see the scholar activist in action here. I should be a politician now. Yeah. Who have previously followed my massive open online courses. I know Annisa has used them in her teaching, and some of you may have joined my seminars in Leeds, where we've done joint seminars. One of the things that I'm personally most concerned about is justice and social justice. And I think that if we get the social justice right, and we start from that very basic principle, then everything else will follow. So if we think about transport, because there are things like the poorest people have the most difficulty getting to work, then they're the people who need the urban transport systems the most. In the UK, we have a problem that in London city centre, house prices are so expensive, then a lot of the people who actually do the real work in the cities, like the cleaning and generally the maintenance of the city, they can't afford to live in the city, so they have to live outside the city in places where the housing is less expensive. So mass transport systems are really fundamental for them. So switching, as Paul says, switching the frame and saying, well, actually what we need to do is to have these essential workers of teachers, nurses, cleaners, they're the people that we need living in the center of the city, and then providing the housing for them. And then the whole transport system need changes and flips. So then you can kind of start to solve your traffic jam because you get the social justice system right. On that, the question of carbon, I think one of the things there, again, is flipping the question. And this is one of the big problems with the term net zero. And net zero is a concept that was agreed in very, very high level meetings, and it was informed by the detailed evidence science of greenhouse gas emissions. So what you see is scientists say, well, the problem is greenhouse gas emissions. It's increased levels of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, so the solution is to stop the emission. But actually what those emissions are is a symptom of social injustice. And if we started to treat the health of our social organism and the social metabolism of things like the city, and instead of worrying about metrics like carbon, and we started to worry about metrics like social justice, then the health of that organism would improve, and the greenhouse gas emissions, the carbon emissions, would then start to decline. But because we have terms like net zero that came from these very high level meetings where the climate scientists have got a big voice, where the high level international politicians are looking for evidence-based solutions, and there's nothing wrong with that. It doesn't actually translate down to the reality of the level of somebody who's trying to live in the city, who's trying to get to work on time, who might have to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning because they have a long commute in order to get to work at 8 o'clock, and fighting their way through traffic jams. So that would be, and this is my kind of personal feeling, start with the social justice, and then that will improve the health of the city and society as a whole. And that is then going to reduce the greenhouse gas emission.
Additionally, the donut economics approach has 48 indicators you can use, and one of them is just carbon. Now, you could do a picture of your locality using these 48 indicators. If you all wanted to form a group and do the Bandung donut economics portrait, I could show you how to do that. If you want to form a group and do a donut economics of Bandung, you can do that. And it's a fantastic tool to then show to government, politicians and leaders about how to change your place.
Okay, so yeah, very nice to hear. So also, I think it answers also the indicator that you asked, yeah, Aska, yeah. So I think John mentioned that it's not also about this physical indicator, but also social indicator. I hope it's also answer your question, yeah, Aska. Okay, so I think the 3 question is already answered. I think we still have 4 minutes left, yeah. Okay, but I think it's really great, yeah, to see about, for example, yeah, okay, let's do this donut economics of Bandung, yeah, okay, and then the student of the, yeah, okay, would you like to
Can I
add
just
something?
mention the social justice jam?
Yeah, yeah, so
Which is part of
jam, yeah.
collaborative project. And perhaps this is something we could include the donut economics idea in the social justice jam.
Yeah,
So I think, Annisa, have you been recruiting students for the social justice jam?
Maybe you can explain a brief about the social justice jam.
Okay, so what
because it's not common here.
okay, what we want to try and do is to link the students here in UPI and also other universities in UGM and Jogja with the students in Leeds to look at particular topics, and then we have a social justice jam and everybody gets together and discusses about that particular problem. But I think this is some information that we can pass on about how to do this and how to join this, and I hope you'll be part of that.
Okay, thank you. So be ready, yeah. We have another program which is social justice jam, and then we need students to do it. Okay, so be ready for it, yeah. Okay, so maybe one last question, yeah, because the time is clicking. Maybe one last question. Okay, from the women participants, yeah. Please.
Okay. Okay. Does my voice clear? Okay. Thank you so much for the chance for me to ask a question. I've noticed from Professor John C. Lovett that you've mentioned on your presentation that you've mentioned about the Sustainable Development Goals. And I've had some research, not like some updates about the Sustainable Development Goals that right on this year, on these days, that it has only achieved 17% of the development that has been made by the 17 development sustainable goals that has been accepted by hundreds of countries on the 19th years. And I've had some few questions that I want to ask about your net zero movements and some of the Learn, Act, and Build from Professor Paul Chatterton. And I have some simple questions about the events that have been going on in the Indonesian country, especially on Jakarta and Bandung. I want to have your point of view and your, how do I say, your critics about Jakarta and Bandung or some places on Indonesia. What do you think about some of the urban cities on Indonesia? Have it made or have it really, how do I say, it's like your expectations or your standards of sustainable cities and urban development? Has some of the cities have really expect your standards or your expectations about sustainable cities and urban development? If it has meet your standards or your how do I say, your expectation, how do we improve these sustainable cities and urban development, especially in Jakarta and Bandung, where we have lots of traffic jams and floods problems that we need to how do I say, that we need to fix right on an instance, because a couple of the because in the past days Jakarta has faced some serious flood problems because of the rains that has been faced for 3 days in a row. Thank you so much.
Okay, and what's your name?
Shalmora Clarissa from Geographic Information System.
Shalom, yeah.
Science. Yeah.
Okay, Shalom, yeah. Okay, I remember. Okay, thank you, Shalom, for the question.
Thank
Did you
you.
get the point? Okay, yeah.
Okay, shall I answer? I'll start with the Sustainable Development Goals. This is interesting, and also it comes back to the idea of metrics, like carbon being a metric. I think when we talk about the Sustainable Development Goals, we need to think about what the ancient Greek philosopher called it helios, a goal. And a goal is, and I mentioned virtue ethics very briefly in my talk. A goal is something that society should be moving towards. So it's a process. We should be moving towards climate-friendly society, to equality and justice, and reducing poverty. And it's not always possible to achieve that goal. But if the movement is towards that goal, then it becomes part of the process of governing and maintaining society and our city living organism.
So perhaps Paul want to add, and also perhaps critics to Jakarta and Bandung.
I mean, many of the many local politicians that I meet are not aware fully of the Sustainable Development Goals, just like they were not aware of the Millennium Development Goals. Well, as John said, they're more of a process than an endpoint, but they do not have the prominence they need to have within institutions in any locality that I visited. But they need to be fundamentally foregrounded in terms of priorities of places, and they're not. Most places prioritize competition, interplace competition, growth, privatization at the expense of human well-being, right? So this is a failure of public leadership, right? The other existential question is, because I run this master's on sustainable cities, and I've looked at sustainable cities all my life, and can cities actually be sustainable? Under what conditions can we have sustainable cities? And I think that's a big question for us all to answer. Under the current conditions, they are not sustainable, right? So we need to have a different vision of urbanism to create sustainable urbanism. Under conditions of globalized trade, industrialism, extractive economies, they cannot be sustainable, right? But it does not mean we cannot imagine or dream about what a sustainable life would look like and start to experiment with those. But, we know that Leeds or Jakarta or Bandung, they're not sustainable as they stand. But so let's have that, let's get the realistic critique out of the way. Let's be sad about that. And then let's move on to something positive and say, well, how do we make it sustainable then? Yeah. So that, that's a process as well. And it's a citywide conversation that I keep coming back to. The leaders at the highest level, the vice chancellors, the rectors, the chief executives, need to say, look, we need to own this problem with the people of our locality, have a conversation about what a good life is in this place.
Okay, thank you so much, Professor Paul and also John. Okay, yeah, I think that's, I hope it answer everybody's question. Also, last question from Shalom, is that answering your question? Okay, yeah. So great, I think, yeah, thank you so much for all this discussion. It was very interesting. And I hope it's also triggering you all and also us, yeah, as a students and lecturers, also particularly in this geographic fields, yeah. Then that concept will be like operationalized, like how to do it. For example, Paul mentioned about super blocks. Actually, that's what can do with the SPG and Psych students, how to make that super blocks, right? How to make this design to make a traffic jam free, right? That's a technical. So I hope it's also will trigger the question for your project later in the future, also for the geography education and how actually to raise awareness for the students. Yeah, so I hope also that this maybe this is a bit conceptual, yeah, but in the end we need something practical to do that. Yeah, okay, so thank you very much. One round of applause for Professor John Lovett and Professor Paul. So thank you. Okay. But yeah.
Just a final word. Thank you very much to everybody for coming here, and thank you to the people who have joined us online. Terima kasih, and you're very welcome to come to Leeds, and we hope to see you there sometime. If not, then I hope that we can come and visit you here again. Terima kasih.
Yeah, also Prof. Paul is a coordinator of MSc in sustainable cities. Yeah. Okay. So perhaps all of you who want to pursue your master degree after this, yeah, there is a master in sustainable cities. Yeah. So you coordinate this program as well, right?
Yeah, so every year we have this Masters in Sustainable Cities. We have a big international cohort from Asia, Africa, Latin America, change. So we'd be really excited to talk about applications from you to do a Masters, 12-month Masters at Leeds, if you're interested in that. We are training the sustainable leaders of the future. Come and join us.
Okay, thank you so much. Okay, before I'm really close this, we will have 3 best participants. Would you like to choose? Or maybe who? The 3 best participants who asking question. Yeah, so yeah. Okay, shall we decide? Okay. So I think I will choose the last question from Salom. Yeah. So okay. So you got one, and then one question from above from Rafi, I guess. Yeah. Okay. And then another from one question is from Rizky. Okay. So congratulate for the 3 of you. And then it's an honor also for John and Paul can give the certificate to the student. Okay. So you can come forward and then Prof. Paul and Prof. John can give it directly to you. Okay. But I will close this session first. So thank you very much. And I will give it back to the MC. Okay. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
We would like to invite the best participant that has been just mentioned to come forward along with Professor John Lovett and Professor Paul Chatterton to come forward to handle the certificates. To Shalom, Rizky, and Kang Raffi, please come forward. And then we would like to invite Prof. John Lovett and Prof. Paul Chatterton to come forward as well. Okay, thank you to the best participants and Prof. John Lovett and Prof. Paul Sheraton. Okay, thank you. Please be seated. So the presentation session has ended. It feels like no time has passed since we listened to and gained extraordinary knowledge from all of our speakers. Let's give them a big round of applause. The next agenda is the handover of plaques and certificates to all of the speakers. We would like to invite Prof. John Lovett and Prof. Paul Chatterton, as well as the head of Geographic Education Study Program to come forward and hand over the certificates and plaques.
We would like to say thank you to our speakers. Let's give them a big round of applause, everybody.
For the last session is the documentation session. Dear guests, we would like to ask you to stand for the documentation led by the documentation team.
For the documentation team, we kindly ask you to lead the documentation station, please. And for the participants, we kindly ask you to
We kindly ask you to stand the
for the
participants
documentation. Yep.
for the documentation. For the participants on the second floor, please stand up for the documentation.
All right, thank you, everybody, and please have a nice seat. All right, ladies and gentlemen, finally, all the session of International Seminar with the title Sustainable Cities and Urban Development, Climate Action and Low Carbon Futures have been completed, which means we are all at the end of the event. On behalf of the organizing committee, we sincerely apologize for any words or action that may have been inappropriate during the event.
Participants, please scan the barcode to register your attendance at the seminar to get your own certificate. The committee, please. Once again, to all the participants, please scan the barcode to register your attendance at this minor to get your own certificate. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm Erlan Farezi.
And I'm Windri Anggraini.
As the master of ceremony, we would like to say thank you and see you on the next event.
Sorry. Thank you so much. I've met you before on the seminar, but you're on the. So much for coming here. Untuk para peserta jangan lupa untuk membuang sampah pada tempatnya dan jangan meninggalkan sampah di ruang auditorium. Terima kasih.